Hello, we are talking today with Mark Seeman. Hello, Mark.
Hello. Pleased to be here.
Yeah, we are happy that you are with us. We saw your presentation about human code, and I'd like to tell us, to our readers in few words, what human code means.
Well, humane code, the basic idea here is that I've observed that most developers and most development organizations spend a lot of time reading code, and the more time you have to waste, just reading the code that's already there, the less time you actually have left for just writing new code. And I've seen more than one organization basically go out of business because, well, you could call it technical debt, but this problem where the code is just so difficult to actually understand that you can't really move forward with it. So the idea about humane code is just basically the observation that reading code and understanding code is this is a process that happens in your brain, and that means we have to take into account the cognitive constraints that the brain has. And we have this brain that is basically the same as it was maybe 100,000 years ago when mankind still walked around in the savannah of Africa. And well, while evolution happens, it happens very slowly. So we sort of have to just work with code in a way that takes into account that there are some human people who actually need to understand this code. So that's the basic message of that.
I see. Really, really interesting concept. And you mentioned about structuring the data in such a way that will be easier for the others. Can you give us some example?
Right. So I think the most important thing is just to keep things small, because one of the cognitive constraints that we do have, there's lots of evidence for this, is that we're really bad at keeping track of lots of different things at the same time. So the number of objects or the number of abstract things we can keep in our brains in short-term memory is like 7 or something like that. That's one number that's sometimes being cited. So keeping code down so that the number of moving parts, if you will, is around 7 or less. That's probably going to be very helpful. So, but even if you don't want to, actually count, how many variables are in play, just keeping the code as small as possible is probably going to be a good idea, no matter the language, basically.
I see. Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And you are a good specialist in clean code and also in dependency injection, right? You write a book, and tell us more about this subject.
Dependency injection is basically one way you can use in order to try to solve this problem, where you say, well, there's a lot of, in reality, there's going to be lots of communicating parts, but you sort of have to, take some of them and sort of abstract them away so that when you're looking at a particular piece of logic, you don't have to worry about what the other part of the system is going to do. So, splitting these things apart, this is what Michael Feathers calls seams, being able to sort of, gently rip apart the code at the seams. Dependency injection is a way to achieve that goal in object-oriented programming. It's not the only way to do that, but it's a very well-known and well-understood way to go about that problem in object-oriented code. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, and tell us about your second edition of your book, if you want.
Right. Yeah. So the second edition. So the first edition is from 2011, which also means that I wrote it between 2009, until 2011. So it's getting a little bit. Old now, and. A couple of years ago, I started to notice that, this .NET Core thing seems to be around to stay. Maybe that's a good opportunity a good reason for doing a second edition of the book. So I started the work with creating a second edition together with so actually not a person that, Steven van Deursen is not, a person I think I've met him once at a conference, but I just know of him because there's a lot of things he's written on the internet and things, all the answers he gives us on Stack Overflow. I just knew that he had, the same way of thinking about the problem that I had. So I asked him whether he would help with the second edition, and he was, very happy to help me, and I'm very happy for that. So the second edition is about updating all the contents of the first edition and making sure that now all the code examples work on .NET Core, and or, when we talk about specific APIs, it's .NET Core APIs and so on. And I think Steven has done an absolutely wonderful job just doing that. But he also did a lot of changes, good changes to the text where, we've learned, I've learned and he's learned, a lot, since the publication of the first book. So we try to incorporate all those things we learned since then, so that the new edition is hopefully much better than the old one. I believe that it is, at least.
Okay, sounds great. And tell us what are your impressions coming and being first time at IT Days?
Oh, I think it really looks like you've tried this before, and I know you have. But it's very clear to see everything is really smooth and well organized, and it's a very nice room. The big room there. I've been sitting there for some good chairs and all things, and nice content. I just saw John Dermot Turing talking about Alan Turing, and good experience. And I'm happy to be here. This is my first time in Cluj. And in Romania even, so I was very excited to be able to come. So I'm very happy about that.
Okay, thank you, and I hope you will come next year too. We'll see.
I hope so too.
Thank you very much.